When I was thinking about what to say today, I realised it really wasn't long ago that I was living in my dad's back garden and working one day a week, and my life had just stalled. It really wasn't going anywhere, and even when I was having fun, I really didn't feel like everything was turning out the way I'd hoped or the way I'd planned or the way that I wanted to when I used to think when I was younger, and you're dreaming and you're thinking about your future, and sometimes it feels like you're never going to grow up. And obviously we all go through that period and we grow up and we want things to turn out how we imagined when we were younger. And I wanted to be a professional footballer, and not because I wanted to play football that much, and I found that out when I started playing a lot of football. I don't love playing the game as much as I thought. I wanted the lifestyle that I saw those guys have. And things really weren't turning out how I'd pictured in my head when I was younger. Even when I was having fun, I felt like something was missing. Something was not how I wanted. I felt incomplete. I never feel like that anymore. And I know that's down to the people in this room. The transformation in my life over the last 4 years has been incredible. If you didn't know me before, you wouldn't be able to recognize me now. And for the people that have seen me on that journey, a lot of them I know don't really understand it. And in terms of my lifestyle increase in terms of money or what the car I drive or the house I live in or the trips I go on, from when I was younger never really being on a plane or going to other countries to now I flew to South Africa this year just to speak at a conference. And the transformation has been huge, but that's not been the biggest change. The biggest change for me was before, if I was driving, and let's say I was driving my girlfriend, and driving down the motorway, and my car tyre blows out. And I pull over to the side of the road, and we get out and we check it, and yeah, the car tyre's gone. And I go, oh, and I get annoyed straight away. And I'd be angry, and I'd feel really unlucky. And then I'd get to the side of the road, and I'd call whoever to come out, and they'd tell me they're going to be an hour or so, and I'd be angry at that too, and I'd be in a really bad mood, and maybe I'd take that out on my girlfriend, and we'd start bickering. We'd have a horrible hour wait in the freezing cold, and say it's midnight, and even if we're fighting, I think I'm a nice enough guy that might get us some clothes if we've got some in the car. So I'd go to the back of the car, and I'd pop the boot, and I'd grab some clothes from wherever I'd been and try and get the clothes to warm up, and we'd have a little squabble and moan about how unlucky we are to be stuck on the side of the road. And then the guy would come to fix the tyre, and I'd ask him why he took so long, and I'd be angry at him too, and then he'd scribble with me a little bit, and he'd go off in a bad mood, and I'd drive off one of those 50 limit tyres on where you can only go 50, which means if you're 170 miles from home, that's a long drive. And I'd get home, and I would have a horrible car journey with my girlfriend, and we'd get out of the car, and I'd go to get my stuff out of the boot, and I'd go, oh. And she'd say, what? And I'd go, I left my bag on the side of the road. And she's like, oh, there's 200 or 300 pounds worth of stuff in there. And I'd be like, yeah. Well, and I said, why didn't you pick it up? And then we'd fight some more, and we'd go inside and have a terrible night, and maybe that would wreck my week or my month. Well, what's really funny is that happened to me. Those set of circumstances, but it's a very different story. I held a leaders meeting at the start of December with Matt Goodchild and Jack Burtock, and I was driving back from a weekend. We had the assistant managers weekend in Dublin, and I was driving back from holding our first meeting, and on the way back, we're just going past, down the M6, past Coventry, and my car goes weird, and I pull over from the fast lane to the hard shoulder, and me and my girlfriend Jay, we get out, and we look around the car, and my back right tyre is shredded. So we jump out to the side of the road, and I make a phone call to the RAC, and they say they're going to be an hour. And I see obviously it's cold, and we're going to have to wait there for a long time, and so I grab some stuff out the boot, and I give some clothes to Jay to try and keep her warm, and she looks at me, and I look at her, and I say, do you know how lucky we are? She goes, what? I say, do you know how lucky we are to have a car that nice to break down in? Do you know how lucky we are to have the opportunity to travel and go to the places that and we go to? And if you're not traveling, you never have a problem with travel. But if you travel as much as I do, and you go to many places, occasionally it's going to go wrong. And do you understand how lucky we are we're standing here looking at a broken down Audi A5, like, that's better than looking at a broken down Corsa. And maybe a Corsa that was a P-Reg that had a different colour boot to the rest of my car. Well, that was my first car, so stop laughing. I worked hard for that car. And so she looks at me and she goes, "Do you ever lose your attitude?" And I'm like, she goes, "Just this once. Like, can you lose your attitude?" I was like, "When it's worth it." I said, "Do you know how lucky we are a lot of couples don't get some time together. We got a whole hour to just hang out. We got nothing to do. We can have a good get-to-know-each-other session here." And we get in the car, and the RAC man shows up, and I'm like, "What's up, man? How are you?" And he looks really confused and makes some comment of, "You're the most excited guy I've ever seen on the roadside for an hour. What do you do?" And I start telling him a little bit, and I'm not trying to go into too much detail. So I'm like, I'm in sales. Let's leave it at that. I don't want to explain too much. And he asks another question, and eventually I end up doing a mini opportunity meeting on the side of the road while he's changing my tyre. And he puts those 50 limits on, and we go back, and Jay gets in the car, and the car engine's back on, and everything's all fixed, and we're about to leave, and he's writing me out, with my car I get free RAC cover, so he's just writing out like the slip to say what's happened, and making me sign something, so I only go 50 on it and stuff, and he goes, you sound like you've done really well. And I said, "Thank you." It's billed from someone I don't know. You know what I mean? And he just said to me, and he went, "I wish I'd had an opportunity like that when I was younger." And I felt bad for the guy. The guy was a really nice guy. So I wish I'd had an opportunity like that when I was younger. And it just made me appreciate so much what I'd found. Because there's no luck here once you start, but I could have just not looked for a job or clicked on another ad, and the mentality I had when I first started, if I went for another interview. I remember my mum picking me up from a holiday and taking me to another interview, and it was £17,000 a year, and I was really excited about that. I remember my mum prepping me like, "Now don't get disappointed if you don't get it." Of course I was going to be disappointed if I didn't get it. Well, you don't turn up. And I didn't get it. I'm pumped I didn't get it. I wouldn't have kept applying. I wouldn't have ended up applying for this place. So that was a little bit of luck. I couldn't have controlled that. But once you start, there's no luck here. Anyway, so I had a lot of appreciation in that moment for the opportunity to have. But I get back in the car, and we drive off, and we're in a good mood, and we're pumping the music, and we're singing along, and we're having a blast, and it takes us ridiculously long on 50 miles an hour to drive the last 170 miles, and I get back to the house, and we go get the stuff out the boot, and I go, "Oh." And Jay's like, "What?" I'm like, "I left the bag on the side of the road from when I was keeping you warm." And she looks at me like not knowing how I was going to react, and I was like, "No worries, I'll replace it. Come on, let's go." And I thought the question was going to come again, like, do you ever get angry? And we went inside, and we had a great night, and it definitely didn't wreck my week or my month. The next morning I got up, and I had a little laugh to myself about it, and thought about going about that stuff and replacing that stuff that day. But I thought if I could fix it, no problem. So I phoned up. I looked on the iPad where I broke it down. I saw if I knew anybody around there. And before, I definitely didn't have friends around the country or around the world. But I do now. And I feel like I could almost leave something anywhere and find someone who'd be near enough to get it for me.